Episode 29 of Consistently Above Average, released on the 29th of March, recorded on the 28th of March, 2025. If you were out and about yesterday on Friday, hopefully you saw some sort of setup for Daffodil Day and threw them a couple of coins if you had it. I walked past them, breezed past them, to be honest. Man on a mission in Conley Station yesterday morning, but realised afterwards what the day was. So when I was getting a coffee back in Dundalk in the afternoon, I threw the coins in and I treated myself to a little. If you are listening to the audio version, you just heard my zip go, hopefully. I'll get closer to the mic. But I'm actually recording this full episode, so this may be released as a video as well in a few days' time. There's a little daffodil there. Daffodil Day for the Irish Cancer Society. They rely heavily on donations to accumulate the majority of their income per year, according to the internet anyway, and by all accounts seem to be fairly transparent with everything they do with the money, very open about their wages, their systems, staff, stuff like that. And it may not have even been through this particular charity, but I do remember getting, we got vouchers, fuel vouchers and stuff like that. It could have been through the hospice, I'm not too sure, but it was essentially, for going up and down to hospital appointments and different stuff like that. And they were given a couple of hundred in terms of vouchers, or a couple of 50s. So perhaps it goes to that. Regardless, hopefully you were able to throw something in. There is enough in the world to be critical of, especially when it comes to charities and CEOs and stupid amounts of money and what's the money actually being used for. But there is a huge chance that cancer will touch your life in some capacity as long as you're around. And if it doesn't, it'll touch someone you know, definitely. So throw the coins in a bucket, maybe make a donation online if you can. And thankfully, it's not a disposable daffodil, if that makes sense, like a real one. It's not going to wilt. So we'll throw it up on the wall here beside us in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be some trinkets and gifts and different stuff from the past decorating the side wall here of the Consistently Above Average studio. And here we are. Episode 29 can officially start after that little unprompted advertisement for Daffodil Day. Dropped a photo on Instagram the other day. This video episode has me sweating already because I'm looking up, but I do compile a lot of this episodes with notes, like bullet points, talking points, and then I will ramble between the certain points and stuff like that. So may have to refigure this out properly again in the future. But dropped a picture on Instagram the other day. A lot more interaction than I would have expected, and definitely a lot more messages than I anticipated. Now, plenty of people have actually seen this particular picture before, as it was my phone wallpaper for about 9 months after that particular tournament. It was also a close friend of mine's phone wallpaper as well, taking the piss out of me, which I have to admit I do respect. How long he kept it for, I'm not sure, but it was his wallpaper at one point in time. The photo in question can be viewed on Instagram, heading over to @consistently above average. That is consistently above average on Instagram. Shout out as well to the 50 people that followed my page this week through a reel I posted of the Cian Corla in the Dáil, a very funny viral clip, and nearly all 50 unfollowed me because they followed me from the reel by mistake. Realised this was not a meme page about topical events. This is a fella talking by himself about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was not their market. But look, if you don't have the lotto ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. So sometimes we have to just tap into those cultural events a little bit more. But you can check it out on Instagram. I might pop it up here in the video in my right hands. This is the picture. Taken minutes after the NoGi European finals in 2022 in Rome. To give a little bit of jiu-jitsu context about the match and the situation, it was 1-1 on advantages, 0 points scored each. Again, this footage, check out the Consistently Above Average YouTube channel in the next few days. The footage is going to be up here in the corner. My advantage was for a knee bar, and my opponent's advantage was for a guard pass attempt. Now, I had it in my head already, and I should have been thinking a little clearer in the moment, that if this goes to a decision, surely, stop calling me Shirley, my advantage for the submission is going to weigh more than his advantage for the guard pass attempt. You can't really think like that and stall it out in the moment, so I knew I had to go for broke. In the last 10 to 15 seconds, I attempted to move into a position called reverse de la Hiva. I was trying to move underneath towards his back. He backstepped out of the position as I was rolling through, and I went forward to attempt a very sloppy, lazy single leg, like wrestle up. I landed and stayed on all fours. He came down on top of me as if he was attacking the turtle, tried to move around to the side, and as that happened, I recovered back to my guard. The timer goes after the bell, the ref gives an advantage, and he wins 2-1 right at the buzzer. Now, in the clip that you've either just seen or is playing as I'm saying this, that I have, the television is blocking the last 2 seconds. But once the advantage is given, didn't realise this until watching it back again today, you can hear a couple of people in the venue who are hopefully cheering me on, or maybe watching someone else. You can kind of hear them go, "No!" or "Ah!" Including one behind the camera, friend of the podcast, Jack Dolan, going, "Oh! Oh!" And I can remember coming off the mat, Jack was there, Peter from Jungle was there, Dylan Nooney, standing there at the barrier. And I can't remember what was actually said in the moment, but I could feel myself immediately getting upset. I then remember sitting down with my back against the barrier, and it was an absolutely insane release. And I started bawling. And it was in that time, Jan Lago, photographer on the jiu-jitsu circuit in Europe, took a picture of me in that moment. He was actually hired by the guy who I was competing against to cover his matches. Got that picture. We got chatting in the venue later on, and he told me that he had a picture that he wanted to show me. That was the picture. And it was a bit of a heavy moment. So the video version of this is also going to be stalled at certain points, as the camera I'm using will shut off every 15 minutes, and this was recording for a few minutes beforehand, so it will be jumping to a degree. We'll try and make a very hilarious edit so that it's seamless. But in the storyline context of that picture, February of that year, found out that Mary had gotten cancer for the second time. It was found relatively early and would be going in for surgery and different stuff like that. How the timeline and stuff of it all went down, annoying wise, or stuff to talk about another day. Essentially, by the time the diagnosis happened to the time that the surgery was happening, it went from feeling that she was needing to get a third of her lung removed to her full lung removed. And as far as I can remember or recall, that decision was kind of made like on the table sort of thing, like maybe when they opened her up or got the most recent scan before the surgery. She was due for 4 courses of chemo or radio afterwards, and could only go through, I think, 2 or 3, as it was determined she could end up in hospital or worse if they finished the course that they were giving her. Gave her a potential or a seemingly all clear in August of that year, with a follow-up needing the following year. Then we found out the following year that it was back, surgery not an option, and that it was terminal, essentially. Around the same time of that, I was also going out with somebody who at the time was living in Spain, which, bit of a strange experience. Having known them many years previously, been involved briefly when we were younger, got back in touch over one of the lockdowns, like seemingly many people did, late 2020, early 2021. I knew they were moving away a few months later, and I didn't think much would become of it, but much became of it, and was travelling over regularly, pretty back to there, contemplating even moving to there, changing things up, the whole shooting gallery, as you might say. Shortly after the cancer diagnosis, maybe a month or two afterwards, we ended up breaking up. But I'm not 100% sure on those timelines. Not that they really matter to the rest of the story that we'll be talking about. I feel that they're relevant to many months later down the line, in terms of the Europeans. So at one point, I'm thinking and writing down in these books that we're going to talk about, classes are going well, 7am class is going well, you enjoy doing it, but is there a better life there, a better quality of life, better money to be made, 300 days of sun, go to Spain, good training, let's just see. So why or how does any of these things mean? Why did you cry, bawl your eyes out 7 or 8 months later after you lost the final? Well, with stuff going on in life like that, I did what any self-respecting Irish male would do, and that is bottle it up and not address the issue. I was actively engaging in addiction services and counselling at the time. Had been off the devil's lettuce for just over a year at that point. Started lifting weights very consistently, and that side of my training was taking it much more serious. So like after Europeans in 2022, first Europeans after COVID, did it at 76 kilo, lost to a guy from London. Remember thinking like, that was crap. Tournaments are back now. You need to do something big here. You need to change things big time this year, 2022 into 2023. Whenever you get your black belt, you need to go on a run. You need to do things better. So 2 silver medals at the Emerald Cup that year, gold and silver at the British Open, gold at a Grappling Industries in Dublin, gold at the Irish Nationals, gold at the IBJJF London Open, gold and a silver at a random competition in Milton Keynes, 2 silvers at the Irish Open, and maybe one other. I'm not too sure. But I was physically feeling much better, and seeing a real turnaround in luck and performance that came from putting the head down, partly heartbroken, putting the blinkers on, as a really popular, famous podcaster might have said last week, and thinking like, she has cancer again, is she going to die? So all of those tournaments were peaking and building towards the NoGi Europeans, which were on in November, and that was the focus. Now, I had 3 matches on the day, but if we go back a moment, all throughout the year and over the previous couple of years, I was a big fan of writing stuff down. Nothing better than a good moleskin notebook. The soft, spined moleskin notebooks that you can kind of like fold and bend. I don't have one at hand here actually, but I can see one at the other side of the room. But I'm not getting up. So this book in particular that I'm going to show to the camera, it has a lovely New Ground Jiu-Jitsu Academy sticker on the front of it. The windows don't open. On the back we have another New Ground sticker, a Jungle BJJ sticker, Bambino pizza sticker, and 2 French backpackers, hikers that I picked up on the side of the road on the way to training one day and left them at the bottom of the mountain near Ravensdale where they were going to camp. So this book had been given to me by Paul the counsellor because he was an advocate of what I had been writing down in this previous book that I'm now displaying to the camera, which you will not see. Maybe you can see it from there. Has a couple of X's written down over Andrew McGahan, 2022 IBJJF Master 1 Brown Belt 70 kilo world champion. Was not able to get into America at that time. So did not book the flights on the... was hoping that some things would change. Didn't book them. Things didn't change. Couldn't go anyway. So we crossed that out. Andrew McGahan, 2022 Irish Open champion, 70 kg. Big X through that one. Double silver. Good work, Andrew, writing that in the front of your book. Irish National champion, 76 kg. That got a wee tick as well. This was a book that my mum bought me for Christmas, I think in 2022. And it had a lot of thoughts in it before and after tournaments. So if we can go to a very specific page here. Let me just find it for you. There's an Aer Lingus flight to Birmingham. Some thoughts about that. Birmingham. The date I'm looking for here is Tuesday the 4th of October. Bear with me, please. Tuesday the 4th of October. Or well, Sunday the 2nd of October, 12:45 Irish Open. Nothing to say or do now. Just have to be assertive in every action. Pull fast. Look to sub everyone. Win on points if needs be. Knee bar, loop, toe hold, arm bar, bow and arrows. All right. Tuesday the 4th of October at 10:30 a.m. Pull fast. Cost the championship. It's a hard one to take. Mentally felt very focused all day. No doubt crept in at any point. A lack of focus on the game plan did. Be proud of what you've done this year. It's going to stand to you for years. Then on Wednesday, the 6th of October, 2022, what a year of work so far. 365 days ago, you were just home from Spain and you have notes of reference from how you felt at that time. A better situation in theory. You don't technically need all that stuff to thrive, but that is for the outside life to go better. On the mat, you're an entirely different person. One day, there will be more to life than this, and you will need to readjust your priorities. There is no point in worrying about that now. It's down the road. Your next steps must be focused on developing a code, a set of values, a series of non-negotiables. If you're going to compete well as a black belt whenever that happens, they need to be followed to the letter as a priority. You go, girl. So I consider all of this stuff, there's my weights as well for the day as well, by the way. I consider all of this stuff to be quite helpful. Now, apart from sharing these bits, like the majority of insane and unhinged logic that I have had in my head will remain safe and sound in these books. So results wise, focus wise, going into the Europeans, I felt very good, confident that it was going to be the one finally. All right. So as we move into book number 2 here on, where are we? This was the week of the Europeans, right? As we started this one off. Monday the 7th of November, 8 minutes past 10 p.m. You trained today like a European champion. Well done. Your pace tonight was focused and relentless. You did great. Need to defend the wrists tighter on necks and in scrambles. You came up on top for plenty of points though, which is important. Reverse de la Riva to hip clamp is going to help you a lot. There is no pressure on you. No need to feel doubt. You have stacked the deck in your favour, done the rounds, done the weights, been in the bad places and persevered. You will make the weight, 67.5 kilo. That was rough. There would be doubt if you did not do all of those things. You just need to step up on the day, roll the dice, realise you have to give it all. No doubt or regrets to be left on the mats. We are all broken to a degree. How you channel it is what makes the difference. Coping mechanisms exist to protect us from annoyance, trauma and upset. Thankfully, you have managed to avoid them for now. Look at where you are versus where you have been. Wow! Exclamation mark. What a turnaround this has been. You have always felt weird. Fair enough. Different, unique, isolated at times. Since 17, you have been on a path less travelled, one that really does not make sense. After experiencing things that are hard to think about, it can create a back to the wall mentality. On Friday the 11th of November, I will become the IBJJF Master 1 Brown Belt 67.5 NoGi European Champion for 2022. I will win as many matches as possible to claim this title. I will be focused and assertive, and in the moment, choose the right options to bring me closer to the gold. Afterwards, I will try and fix everything else. On Friday the 10th of November at 3:49 p.m, this was the crack. Dublin Airport seating area, charging my phones. Flying solo to the IBJJF NoGi Europeans would be a greater show of faith if more people could believe in this project. I think my actions will lead an improvement in the future, but it depends on where I am. I'm in peak condition right now. 67.5 has been easy. Discipline and consistency have paid off. We are going places. There is no limit. You'll be sitting here Monday morning, heading off to Spain on a holiday. Different this time. Excited for the Europeans in both ways. What will be, will be. Definitely need the time off afterwards. And then just to finish up in terms of our book reading for today's episode, on Saturday the 11th of November after the tournament at 8:45 in the evening, sitting in my Airbnb by myself, this was how the brain was going. Friday the 10th of November. Saturday, I'm right. Saturday the 11th of November, 8:45. Today, I almost became a European champion. I came within 10 seconds of achieving a long-term goal. I am hurt right now with the wrong decision being made, but those are the breaks. I can't imagine how I would have felt had I have pulled that off today, but the emotion that came afterwards took me by surprise. A lot of challenges this year. It would have been great to finish it off and overcoming all of them by getting a gold. I'm not ashamed of the emotion, as it was genuinely heartbreaking. This will be a great lesson for future. Trust that you are going to get the win in future. Whew. So what's meant by that is that I was very proud of myself for going through the bracket how I did. I was in my head because in my semi-final match I was against someone who had medalled at NoGi Pans, medalled at maybe NoGi Worlds or Masters Worlds as a brown belt in the gi, and was ranked top 5 IBJJF for our weight class at the time. So beating him going into the final, I was convinced I was about to do this lad in the final, and by all accounts, top right hand corner again. I was pretty close. The knee bar was on. I didn't capitalise throughout the match on attempting to come up on top to score points from the chances that I had, which had been a huge flaw in my game at that time, which was addressed in the book a few days previously. That was quite annoying. The thing that bothered me on that day as well is that after I had gotten upset, I asked the referee what was the crack with that advantage. Why did he get it? And the referee said, "Oh, he passed your guard and you turtled." I said, "No, I wrestled up from the single leg." Then he asked to see the footage. Then he saw the footage and then he apologised. And then he said to me, "Why did you go for it? I was about to give you the decision. You had a knee bar attempt." And in my head I was thinking, had I have lost that referee's decision and tried to rest on my laurels at 1-1 in a European final, I would have been sick with myself. So I did take some comfort in the thought of thinking that, well, you went for it and you came short. That's easier to take than thinking that you were just going to get away with it and get the win, if that makes sense. The following day, this was the crack. 10-6, Saturday the 12th of November, Cafe Pereira, Ostia, Rome. Today was much easier. As expected, my body is so sore, waiting on 2 cappuccinos and 2 cannolis. What a privilege to be able to sit here alone, even if I'm by myself, doing the thing that I love the most. Belief and perspective changes. Maybe Spain was not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot to be said for trips and lessons like this. Everything in moderation, I suppose. But I'm onto something with this day. I lead by example, and from the front, I motivate and encourage people. I would rather lose like I did than not try at all. And then I wrote down a load of ideas over the next 3 pages in one go about how the training needed to get better. How important all of these things are and different stuff, goals for the following year, whatever. Brilliant. Good book. All things considered though, I think the emotion, like I said, wasn't down to like, oh, I'm sad because I lost. More that it nearly happened, that I nearly pulled it off. And it's something that I've wanted since 2012, to be a European champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. To be considered that on the day of the tournament, for whatever rank it was that I was competing at, and on that day, at that time, I was the best in Europe. The champion has to come from somewhere, might as well come from Dundalk. We already know Dundalk is one of the best places in Ireland. Perfect for a European champion. That was the goal. 10 years in the making. Lost. Quite annoying. And add in all the events that we talked about from that year that we were going through. Like, when it came down to it, it felt like such a pleasure to feel so alive and to be free from those distractions and to be free in the moment of competition and to be doing the thing that you love more than anything, that it was a dump afterwards. Do you know what I mean? It was a pure dump. To really feel that pain and to be in the mix, to care that deeply about it, it meant a lot to me. And that emotion afterwards was just insanely overwhelming. The picture is beautiful. The picture is powerful as far as I'm concerned. It is raw. It is emotive. I can remember exactly how I felt in that moment. And I think it's a perfect example of how people maybe take photographers, creatives or whatever, for example. That is for granted. That is something that I will treasure for the rest of my life. Genuinely treasure for having it for the rest of my life. And there is a thing, like there are genuine, really good creatives in the jiu-jitsu community that I have come across, that I know and stuff like that. And through other areas of life, I've come across people who could get their head in where a rat wouldn't. You know, who just always seem to have said the right thing to the right person at the right time while disparaging another person at the right time in the right place at the right whatever to make them seem better. And as far as I'm aware, that stuff isn't in jiu-jitsu. It may well be if I were to speak to some more creative people to tell me about X, Y, and Z. But I have a very positive experiences and very positive thoughts. Like the people that I worked with over the years and stuff like that, all great. It was kind of like the stories that I heard from the other people that were colleagues about what had happened to them and different stuff like that. It's insane. But the funny thing, forget about that. Praise Jan Lago at momentbjj on Instagram. What a legend. Great picture. He's done a lot of other tournaments for me since because of that picture. And I'm happy to give him the money. It helps me with advertising privates. It helps me with advertising social media. He does do it for a little bit cheaper than the going rate, but I would recommend booking him for an IBJJF major if you're going to be heading to one in the next little while. The funny thing was, though, that's also in this little book, is that the same lad that beat me in the final of the NoGi Europeans, 3 months later, bet me in the final of the Gi Europeans as well. I know what you're thinking. Nobody beats Andrew McGahan twice and gets away with it. Wrong. Because he bet me in London, my first tournament as a black belt as well. Both of our first tournaments as a black belt. A month after that as well. So maybe the Gi Europeans run to the final might be something that we'll talk about another time as well. In the words of Alex Jones in this book, we have the documents. We have the documents. Joe, we have the documents. So we might discuss that in the future. It's late on Friday. This was released middle of the night on Saturday. So tomorrow in Uri, long day of competing at Empire Grappling. Plenty of teammates competing. Can't wait to be a nervous wreck throughout the day. One of my best mates, Connell, is competing for the first time as well. Genuinely hope he doesn't listen to this on the way down to the venue to compete. I'm more nervous for him competing than I would be if I was competing tomorrow. But it's because I know that a lot of these people have put in a good amount of work and that they deserve to be able to get that moment of competing well and winning multiple matches. But the other reality is that for others that are there tomorrow, I am fully expecting them to win gold comfortably, gold easily. Because the reality is that their potential and ability is far, far higher than whatever is going to happen in Newry Leisure Centre tomorrow. And these are just trials. These are test runs. Like, losing a match doesn't actually matter here. They are working towards European major medals. Gi and NoGi at blue and purple belt. That is the goal. That is the end goal for some of these people competing tomorrow that I train with. Maybe, fingers crossed, in the future, I might be able to empathise with them. Someone that I teach, I can empathise with them. I can be the empathetic voice. When they subsequently lose a European final as well, I can say, well, I've been there. I know what that feels like. Don't worry about it. But the real aspiration is not to be able to put an arm around somebody and say, sure, it's all right, it happened to me. It's to be able to put an arm around somebody and say, you did one more than me. You won the European final. Celebrate with them with an ice cold can of Coke in some far-flung place in Europe. Probably Lisbon, probably Rome. And celebrate a European champion. That's what we want. So good luck to anyone competing tomorrow. Enjoy the day. Chat to you next Friday. And if you've watched the video episode, thank you very much for staying tuned the whole way through the cuts and the shoddy editing. Like most things in life, this will only get better.